Yeah, so I I just like I like the psychology of things, the how people overcome difficulty, hardship, faced with a challenge,
Yeah.
how they approach it, what they do. Because most things you can approach it and can solve in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not you, but you can start, and then someone else can take up the baton and
Yeah.
solve it later.
Depending on where this goes, we might talk about this later.
Yeah, so
I
I'm
was
talking about it now.
I was telling this story. What am I doing here? I'll explain what I'm doing. I was telling a story to um, grads and apprentices, and there was a general question came out, Andy, what else would you say to us? What else would you do? Any other general advice? And I recounted to them a story when I was called up when I was at Adidas, and I was called up to, I think it was the CEO's office. Just I don't really know why. It was something. And on his desk he had this block of wood, and it was the shape of a Toblerone bar, right? And it was quite interesting. And it had on the side that I could see, like it. And he could see I was looking at it. He said, "You want to know what that's about?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Turn it over." Turn it over. He said, "Change it." Okay. He said, "Turn it over again." It said, "Deal with it." So I said, "Talk me through it." And he said, in any situation in life, there's only three things you can do. You can like something, in which case throw yourself into it, grab it. If you don't like it, what can I do? I can change it. You take some agency, you do something about it, you own it. If you can't change it, what else can I do? You've got to cope with it. You've got to deal with it. So find a mindset, find a coping strategy. And if that doesn't work, it forces you back to, okay, well, maybe this isn't so bad as I thought. Maybe I can like this if I have a different mindset. And actually, especially if I could change a bit of it, and it forces you to go through that whole process. And what it also does, I found for me, it works because it gives me agency. It tells me, actually, I can do this. I'm not waiting for someone else to do something, and I'm not going to sit there and be the victim. Own it, those kind of things. So funny, that's years and years ago, but that has resonated with me throughout my career, those kind of things. It's always, what could I do? What can the people I'm with do? What can the team do to come on, move this thing forward on my own?
So how then do you think that that could be better taught within the industry that we're in? So we're both leaders of sustainability consultancies, effectively, with Hollis.
Yeah.
What is it within there that we can do to try and help that message get through to the people that feel frustrated or feel disappointed by the state of the built environment when it comes to carbon emissions or so on? Because it feels like to me at the moment at times that there's an exasperation and that element of agency that you speak of, that there's a tendency to give that up quite quickly, place that on government and say, we need you to come in and save the day, or it's someone else's fault, or whatever it is. So it's not any of those three things that you've mentioned. It's point the finger.
Yes, exactly. It's an extraneous, someone else is going to fix it. So if I may, a brief, because what you're saying strikes a strong chord at the moment. Brief anecdote, and then what we can do about it. So I was at an event recently, and it was a dinner for lots of the great and the good of the sustainability world. And my overriding sense when I left the evening, this was one of despondency. This was one of, we used to be the most important people. We used to be the most influential people in the industry, and we're not anymore. And there was a sense of, well, what we need to do is just hunker down. It'll come back. And there was a few of us discussing this, and well, yeah, maybe, but maybe actually, again, turning my Toblerone bar, what would turn this from a feeling of despondency into what could we do about it? And it led to a discussion. Said, well, maybe actually this could be the maturing of the sustainability drive. It could be, maybe you can argue that there's been perhaps a little bit of froth or noise around it, not substantiated, and actually getting rid of that could be a good thing, because now we can really focus on what really will make the difference, what really will reduce emissions, what really will, reduce the amount of waste that we're producing. And it led to okay, well, what would that look like? And trying to turn this into a more positive approach and say, okay, well, let's recognize that people or when they're looking to move something forward from a sustainable perspective. There's a spectrum of needs. It could be the evangelical kind of, yes, I'm doing this purely for the good of the planet, which is perfectly valid, through to the other end, which is, do you know what, I'm just going to tick some boxes because I want planning permission. And it's okay, well, there is somewhere between those two, there is a good commercial basis for this. So let's focus our efforts on that, because even if we've lost some supporters at one end of the spectrum, let's really work this piece. So again, so I think that was my sense, I think it was right, perhaps this is the first time that this group has not been at the forefront, has not had all the plaudits coming at them and the resources coming at them. Okay, fine. So now how are we going to deal with it? And I think, to answer your original question, what can we do about that? I think part of it is just going through it, is learning it, and leaders encouraging that thought. I also think there's probably something at the other end, perhaps the more junior people in organizations, which is explaining these kind of basic concepts of what agency is, taking control of it, framing the issue in the context of the environment, of the market, those kind of things. It's that broader thinking rather than the narrow thinking that I suspect most of us start out with in our careers, don't we? We say, this is what I'm doing. I'm just doing this. So, okay, well, what's the perspective on this? What's the context on this? Reframe this challenge you've got within that context. So I do think there's a lot about that. We do a lot of that at work. One of the reasons I was having this conversation with our grads and our interns was precisely that. I want them to understand the context. I want them to be able to solve problems, not just deliver tasks. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. Or even just identify problems as well. That's one of the things that I say in my organization is, to identify a problem is not necessarily that skillful, because it's so apparent to us. We're hardwired with our lizard brain, as it were, to kind of say, here's a risk here, there's a problem here, these are problems. But where the real value is to understand that problem in context, and then what to do about that problem so that something better comes at the other end.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one of the things that I found very useful actually is to, especially when you're with a group of people in some form of a team or a board or a committee or whatever, is what exactly we're trying to solve for here. It's that, because different people will come with their different take on a problem. So actually, yes, let's define what we're trying to solve here. There's all these things that we could solve, but what's the core? What are we really trying to solve for here? And so I think that's a discipline. That's a discipline of the individual who's leading it or the individuals who are participating in it, to get that clarity. Right, we've got the clarity of what we're trying to solve for, and we'll park those others. We'll come back to solve for them. But once you've got that clarity, right, now let's turn into what can we going to do about this? Now, but again, it comes back to a lot of that comes through the training people get earlier in their careers. It comes back to finding themselves in the situations where they have to deploy that kind of skill set. If all you do is put people into task-driven situations, guess what? That's what they will do. Put them into a situation where they've got to shape. Hang on, what am I doing here? This is a bit vague and a bit nebulous. I've got to shape what I'm going to do. And I think people generally thrive in that.
I agree. How did you end up at Hollis? Based on the conversation that we've just had earlier, it seems like you started, or at least at one point, worked at Adidas. So
I did, yeah.
A sports manufacturer, a sportswear manufacturer, is very, very different from a sustainability and a consultancy that you're in at the moment.
Yeah. I'll try and do the condensed version. So I'm an accountant by profession. We've talked about that. I always found accountancy something I could do, if I'm honest, rather than something I enjoyed. So my roles at Adidas, it started out doing a bunch of financy type stuff, but I always found myself much more attracted to, and I'll come back to that later. Okay, well, how can I deploy my analytical skills and so on in other areas? Roll forward, I then joined Diageo as a finance role, but Diageo was the first company that said to me, fine, you've got this stuff covered, go and take a job in strategy. So that gave me huge exposure to, all of a sudden now I'm doing strategy and marketing on some of Diageo's biggest brands. I happened to live in the States at the time as well. So I've been lucky that at various stages in my career, people have taken a punt on me. People have said, you know what, there's some raw material here. You haven't got the orthodox background, but we think you can do this. And actually, you'll bring a different perspective. We've got lots of other people already, some of that. You'll bring a different perspective. From there, I was in the automotive industry and actually was CFO of a vehicle leasing company. But we were fundamentally selling finance. That's what we were doing. So I found myself on the front foot again, selling the assets, even though I was the CFO. It was largely asset-backed finance. And then CBRE knocked on the door, have been there for a while, and said, that's kind of what we do, or we do something very similar to that. We, on behalf of our clients, we buy assets, we fund them, we we fit them out, etc., which is largely what we're doing in the automotive world. And the fundamental difference was one was an asset that depreciated, typically a car, a vehicle, the other one, which we hope was tendencies more to appreciate. So again, huge kudos to CBRE. They were prepared to take a punt, someone outside industry, and what they were looking for was someone that had a different skill set. They said, we can teach you everything you need to know about being a surveyor, but you bring a different skill set. The finance helped, my experience of running large teams, systems, processes, client-facing stuff. So that was it. And that got me into real estate, where I've been, excuse me, for more, 20 years or so. And then Hollis kind of came knocking, said, come and help us run Hollis and grow Hollis, which is all I'm doing now. So that's a shortened version of it. But I'll repeat, at various stages, what's been brilliant in that, something I try and do is people have taken that punt on me. People have said, okay, you haven't got the orthodox background to this, but we think it can be a success. And I think I've always benefited from individuals taking that view. Same with the appointment at Hollis. The chairman and the founders and the group there said, yeah, do you know what? This is the guy. We think we can make this work. So yeah, interesting journey.
Interesting with that as well. It seems like you've taken a punt on another industry, because there's been a few industries that you've been in, and just like an organization or a person will take a punt on you, surely that must work both ways, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going from something where you would have built up, yes, a core skill set, which is transferable, but a certain level of understanding, maybe even comfort, predictability, to then go back almost to this bottom of the learning curve,
yeah.
which then feels maybe like a hockey stick or a vertical. I don't know. I'm just guessing here.
Well, now, and again, you make a very relevant point. Again, another conversation I was having the other day. This concept of changing lanes. I'm a firm believer that both for the individual and for the organization, changing lanes is a good thing. Okay, so if you look at what I just described to you, I'm an accountant that's now in general management via marketing. I'm a Brit that has lived and worked in Germany and in the US. I've started in sporting goods via FMCG, automotive to real estate. And at each stage, you're right, I've had to say, hang on, this is a bit of a left curve move. Not always an upward move, if I'm honest. People have said, move over here, it's a sideways move. But at each stage, and I said this to a group I was with the other day, every single one of those gave me something new. So you throw yourself into it, trust, don't do it blindly, understand what the risks are, understand the exposures for me and for the people I'm going to be working with, and then take a balanced view. But generally, well, they've all worked out, but every single one of them, I've learned something. I think the point you're making, going in and learning to deal with the discomfort of this isn't an industry I know. So what does that do? It makes you a bit more resilient. It makes you more comfortable. Okay, I don't know everything. So how might I improve my knowledge? You know what? I might have to ask a few questions of people. I might have to trust people more while I'm getting up to speed. And I think, and there's times when it's hurt and it's not been without its pain, but back to resilience, back to what I believe it's made me, and I think companies can deploy this. I think it has made me and makes companies more resilient. It makes them more flexible. Guess what? I think companies get better decisions if the people making them haven't only worked in one particular area, but have worked in other areas. That could be in different functions in Hollis. My COO at the moment at Hollis, he's a surveyor. Okay, that's what he does. He's been client-facing, understands all this stuff, has done his time delivering dilapidations, that kind of stuff. But you can absolutely see the raw material there, his approach. I thought, he'd make a great COO. So now he's my COO. And as a result, I've now got a COO that takes decisions based on their understanding of client needs, delivering the services, being a fee earner, all those things. And I think the company's the better for it. And there are plenty of other examples of that. And I think that's kind of part of my job. I think it's part of the job of the leaders to do that. So it's both to give people their individual opportunity to change lanes, but that the company benefits from all of that as well.
So as you've gone from one industry to another, what formula have you adopted, or what advice would you be able to give to other people that may want to take that step, but are unsure of the process to go through for them to do their own due diligence to understand where that risk is? Because no one wants to make a shift and realize, actually, it's all come crumbling down. I now need to move out of my home, or all these fears that can surround people in changing lanes.
Yeah. There's a few things in there, I guess, that come to mind. I think to some extent, know the people who you're talking to about the shift. Do I trust this person? Do I feel that even when it doesn't go right, there's still a relationship there, as in, because it won't be perfect. That's the point. But have I got a good enough relationship with this person, or do I feel positive enough about this person who's asking me, who's suggesting I make the change, that, do you know what, we'll find a way? I think that's a large part of it. I think part of it, so that's a bit of your DD. I think part of it is also understanding what are the things that you enjoy doing? And by that, I don't mean being a surveyor, being an accountant. It means a deeper. What are the, when are you at your best? When is the radar at its most alert? Is it when you're standing up presenting in front of 100 people? Or actually, is it, no, solving a problem, locked away, it's midnight, but I'm going to solve this before I go home? Is it that? And I think it's understanding those things. What are the things that really get you excited, and will this new opportunity give you more opportunity to spend more time in those situations? I think it's just a basic DD. I think there is something about also be brave, do be bold, and ask yourself, look, what's the downside? I could do this. This is going to give me another string to my bow. It's going to give me another functional skill set. It's going to make me more resilient. I'm going to get a whole new exposure to new ideas, new tools, new techniques. That's brilliant. What's the downside? You know what? It doesn't work. Can I sell to potentially a future employer what I've done? Can I say, do you know what? I was bold. I took a risk. Here's why I thought it was worth taking. I learned from it. My experience, that's a good story. It's a good, shows a good part of your character or attribute to be able to, that future employers or people you're going to work with might find attractive.
I like that. One of the things I'm wondering now is when it comes to problem solving. So you made reference to this earlier on in the conversation, is what is it that we're optimizing for effectively? Yeah. So I'm just wondering now what it is that you see within the marketplace at the moment that is maybe the top problem that you or we need to optimize to try and solve, or maybe the top 3 problems.
Okay. So there's a few things. I touched upon one of them the other day. I think the whole sustainability agenda is facing a bit of turbulence. Okay. So that is clearly a problem. It's clearly presenting challenges for the individuals who work in it. What's my future? But more importantly, for, the real estate, the construction industry. Hang on, is this? Are we walking away from this completely, or not? Do we still believe in this?
So walk through those changes as you see them. Sorry, not the changes. Walk through those problems as you see them at the moment.
I think
for both the people that work in the industry as well as the whole market itself.
Let's start at the market. I think there is I think, and it's not just the North American. The current government over there that's driving these. I think there are other dynamics at play, but that's the most obvious one, and therefore the extent to which that dynamic challenges some of the things that have just been taken as read around sustainability, around the benefits that accrue to society, to our industry, to occupiers of buildings, visitors to buildings, so all those benefits, I think, are now effectively being challenged.
Yeah.
So, but again, the optimist in me says, okay, fine, this is just another hurdle. Look, right, we're being challenged. If we've got the conviction of it, then let's make the case. Actually, by all means, challenge us. Here's why this does still matter. So, but I think there are, one of the problems is just that perpetual challenge at the moment. I also think there is something around, as I say, the shift for the individuals, the shift from, go back not that long ago, several years, the individuals with the skill set and sustainability were in such huge demand, and there was a real shortage. And as soon as you needed someone, you had to get into the market really, really quickly, or the individuals you wanted were gone.
And the pay.
Well, yeah, exactly. The pay and packages. And now I think for those individuals, it's a different environment now. So on a personal level, okay, we've got to get used to that. So I think that's another one of them. I think more broadly, there is an uncertainty, and this is not just a sustainability. There is an uncertainty, therefore, about what the future is. What's this going to look like? But again, back to where I started, I think part of what we can do is help shape that. Okay, well, let's us take some agency. Let's not just wait and hope and see what other people, the extraneous forces, are going to do. Well, what's our role in this? We're the people that know more about this than anyone else. We're being challenged at the moment, and we're being asked to justify why we're taking certain actions. Courage of our conviction. Come on, let's do this. So I think there's something about us putting some more, or filling the void where there is this kind of uncertainty, trying to put a bit more certainty around it. So I think there's something around there. I think more broadly, some of the challenges are just, especially for the real estate industry, more broadly, there is just this, and it's even for the economy, there is just an uncertainty. There is, whether it's because of geopolitically what's going on, whether it's because of, I'm talking in London, from the UK, we've got another period of several months now, we're ahead of a budget, so there's all the vacuum to be filled there. Oh, the government's going to do this, the government do that, what will happen if? So you've got the uncertainty there, more uncertainty on top of all the uncertainty we've had for the last few years. Was it 18 months ago we had the new government in? Well, then there was the period of what's she going to do in her first budget? What are they going to do? There was the period 6 months, well, probably way more than that, while everyone was expecting the new government to come in. So more uncertainty. All of this leads to decisions taking longer, investors deciding, well, I might just hold on to this for now, not going ahead with the investment. So I think there is this general, one of the main problems that affects our industry is this uncertainty. So it feels just as if we're moving off and things are looking good and positive, and it's all the brakes are on again, stop, halt, And I think that stop-start nature creates an issue for companies, economies, companies, but individuals as well. We want to grow a particular part of our business. Well, hang on. Do we know that's going to still be there? Is that growth still going to be there in 12 months' time? I'm by nature an optimist. I believe, though, if not that, then this over here, this will be the growth area. But I think that's some of the main problems that are ahead of us.
Yeah,
and all that, it filters down to the individuals. Okay, well, what does that mean for my future? What does it mean? Should I continue to invest and continue for a career in sustainability, or maybe it's time for me to change lanes. Maybe it's time for me but I can always come back to sustainability later, but maybe I'll try something different. And that's not necessarily a negative thing,
I think it's definitely a new industry.
Yeah.
Really, really, really young industry. When I set my company up 2006, and you go back in your mind to what was going on in the world in 2006, and no one was interested in sustainability like they are now.
No.
So there's been a huge shift from then to now.
Yeah.
People weren't using words like carbon reduction, carbon counting, net zero. They just weren't phrases that were going on. And I remember when I quit my job and set this company up, everybody thought I was bonkers because I was doing this. You're like, Darren, what are you doing? You've got 3 kids. This is, irresponsible. What are you doing? But I think, and we've discussed this before the camera started rolling, is that just because something's going well doesn't mean to say that it's not going to dip and have a period of retraction or difficulty or even discovery. And just because something's going really poorly doesn't mean to say that there's not going to be a recovery and things aren't going to improve. And I think that when we're in whichever moment we're in, naturally it seems difficult for most people to be able to see another reality or another future which is different from the one that they're presenting at the moment. And I remember there was this big shift. So going from 2006, there was a big shift in people's wages. So my staff wage bill just shot up over the course of a couple of years because of that very point that you're talking of. There was just a grab, like a people grab. We need this person, and the way to get them in was just to give them just huge amounts of money to persuade them to come in. And it was eye-watering, some of the stuff that was going on. But I think that kind of going back to this point where things are being challenged, and you mentioned governments and so on, but I think that this is a good thing. The reason I think it's a good thing is because when you're challenged with something, you're forced then to look into that topic with a lot more detail, a lot more depth, and come back and articulate either a story or an angle or facts that enable you to grow the whole industry or that line of thinking and to have it developed. So maybe it's a really bad example, but I remember listening to a story when the locomotive or the steam train was first created. And at that time, the science or the belief was that if the human went more than 30 miles an hour outside, that they wouldn't be able to breathe, and so they'd suffocate because of how fast 30 miles an hour was back then. Obviously, we know that that's not true, but that needed to be tested. That theory needed to be tested. And so I think that the same is with sustainability and the way that we treat the earth, the way that we treat each other, the way that we treat businesses and buildings and all the rest of it. I think to have that challenge just enables us to come up with, actually, we thought this, but it's slightly different, and this is it, which then helps this discovery of what the truth is. But in order for us to get to the truth, we need to be challenged on an opinion.
Again, I agree. It's, I think, no, it's, when you look through the history of humanity and civilization, it's been a series of challenges. Oh, what are we going to do? Okay, well, let's think about it. We adapt, fundamentally, that's what evolution's about. We adapt, we learn, we change. I mean, I'm back to my Toblerone. All right. Do I like this? No. Okay, well, what can I do? What can I do to change it? What can we do to change it? And I agree completely. And I think these things are not meant to be easy. You said it. It's a new industry. Okay, so guess what? This is the first bit of turbulence. But we'll come through it because we have the convictions. We know we'll have to change our approach. There'll be some things we'll say, do you know what? That part doesn't matter quite so much anymore, but this part is really what matters. And I think that's what we will have to do. And I don't doubt that we'll come out of this and it will be a sharper, cleaner set of, services. I suspect we'll get to the point where we will clearly get harder commercial edge around it. I think that's it. I mean, we're pretty good at finding ways to create value as humans, generally are quite good at doing that. I believe we will do that around this. But it's not unhealthy to be challenged. It's not at all. So, there's a bit of turbulence. We'll go through it. We'll come out the other side. I'm a great believer also in a pendulum swing. A pendulum swing. So what today is really, really unpopular, who knows? Who knows? Pendulums will swing back. I mean, I was chatting to someone yesterday who'd been in our industry for a long time and was talking about how just the nature of their portfolio, the shape of their portfolio changed. And he was saying when he started, it was over 20 years ago, the portfolio that he was responsible for had something like 2% of industrial logistics. Well, now he says it's over 30%. And now no one would have thought of that. No one would have thought, it was sheds and all this kind of stuff. But things change. The environment, the context changed, which gave rise to that demand. And, everyone's like, right, there's an opportunity here. How can we create some value at it? And retail's kind of slightly gone the other way. I know first when I came into real estate 20 years ago, retail was huge and it was one of the most important asset classes. Now it still is, but absolutely, it's gone through, especially over the last 5-10 years, has gone through some challenges. There's some changes driven largely by societal changes, things like COVID and all that kind of stuff. But guess what? The smarter you go out there, talk to smarter retailers. Okay, they've adapted. They've come up with new ways of doing it. And so I think there will be every part of the industry, every part of society goes through these challenges and generally comes out stronger.
What I'm picking up from this conversation is that change is necessary for growth. Change is necessary in life. And someone said to me some years ago, is the only thing that doesn't change is dead.
Oh dear, yeah.
And when I think about it, it's like, well, yeah, actually, or you probably could get a little bit picky and say, well, even dead things change because it decomposes. And but anyway, I think the principle is right, is that as living humans, we need to change and we need to develop and evolve. And the industry that we are in, whereby sustainability is that there needs to be change in that, and that needs to evolve. And that includes people that have come from an accountancy background
Yep.
or from a retail background or other backgrounds that maybe aren't even closely connected to buildings.
Agree. I was chatting to again, it was in our Birmingham office, and I was chatting to a group of people from there, and this particular individual had recently joined us after over a decade being a teacher. So, okay, well, talk me through that. The experience this individual had, the maturity they had, understanding the chaos of a classroom, putting some structure around that, the ability to deal with it when we all come to work and we know generally people are going to behave okay.
Yeah, be polite.
It's not the way it is with a bunch of young primary school children. They haven't learned all the norms that have it. But it's fantastic that we've now got this individual in Hollis. I mean, I am very proud of the fact that I didn't do it, but the people who gave her the chance, in the Birmingham office, what a great decision. I'm proud that we can do that. But actually, I'm more than that. I'm convinced it's going to be a success. It's going to be brilliant. And that's just an example of the whole change, bringing people into the industry from outside. They bring a different skill set. They will bring a different approach to problems. Going back to different approach to challenges. Okay, so if we have more of the same thinking on these challenges, guess what? We're not going to get through it. Some different thinking with people from outside the industry or from different with a different approach, different tools, different techniques. We've got more chance of getting through these challenges. So it's a very practical. It sounds sometimes almost philosophical, this discussion, and parts of it I guess are, but they have very practical, pragmatic applications. Right, let's go and get some from outside. What skill set is it we're looking for? Are we looking for deep analytics? Are we looking for management of large groups of people? Are we looking for people? What industries have adopted technology? There's one. What industries have adopted technology at a greater rate than ours? Because I just don't think I don't think you'd call our industry bleeding edge. Probably not even leading edge.
No, nowhere near.
But it's okay. Well, what industries have adopted? And I don't mean dabbled in it and tried it, but seriously adopted technology. And well, let's go and get some people from that industry. Let's at least get some or from those industries. That's the kind of very, very pragmatic applications. That's what will make the difference.
Andy, it's been great having you on the podcast. I've appreciated your wisdom, your perspective. And I think just that last point that you made there, when it comes to technology, this is one of the passions that's kind of deep in my heart. And especially when you look at the area of social media, you look at the area of things like the beauty industry, and the way that they've adopted technology to tell a story, to position something of high value and something that's really, really desirable.
Yeah.
And the way that they've incorporated technology in that, I think that there's a huge amount that the construction industry can learn, but the lessons can be borrowed or pinched or looked at from other industries and then just applied in our own. And I just want to end on that note, just hoping that this is something that Hollis is going to do, and those people that are listening to this podcast today are going to think about what they can do specifically in the technology space to help share and tell a better story around sustainability in buildings.
I think those that don't won't be in the conversation much longer. I think it's as simple as that. But no, I've enjoyed it as well. Thank you very much, Darren. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching to the end. I think that you'll like this, but before you do that, just make sure that you've commented and liked below, and also that you've subscribed.